over here because I'm short. If I stand behind that, they won't be able to see me.
So they'll just see like a head floating.
I'm a real person, I promise.
So I'll just step back. I'll step back and step up. Okay. So, hello. So, welcome to Personal Data Privacy. The original title of this was Blocking Big Brother. Big Brother and Personal Data Privacy. So, my name is Todd Brasel, and I am a consultant for ANYCon, which is a nonprofit consulting firm. We do work with state government IT. My background is actually as a software engineer and test, so I'm not actually a hacker, but I do work with them, and they say I'm okay as long as I don't like touch anything. So
he'd like to be a hacker.
Yeah, I really want to be a hacker. My introduction to this part of information security came from the software world, but actually my introduction to privacy came from Michele. And when I was working with Michele at another company, I was checking my email one day on my phone, and Michele said, "Why are you checking your work email on your phone?" I said, "Well, it's convenient. I do that all the time." And Michele said, "You shouldn't do that because..."
By using a personal device to check your work items, storing documents, PDF files, anything connected to work in your personal email on your personal computer, if there's a criminal or civil case, your personal account can be searched to use against you because you've now had your work stuff touching your personal data. So everybody be careful on that one. We all do it. It is convenient. I understand. Just try to keep it separate.
So that was kind of my introduction to it. And then from there, I started thinking about separating my work and my personal life. And that's also a good introduction to Michele, and I'll let her talk about herself for a moment.
So I'm Michele Warner. I'm a senior consultant with ANYCon. I am a lawyer. Sorry. I don't practice, though. My law degree comes in handy for reading privacy policies, laws regarding privacy, HIPAA, all of those fun acronyms. I first became interested in privacy when I was reading an article about a woman whose picture of her child had been stolen. She posted it on social media, and it was used for a purpose that she never approved and didn't know was happening until it caught up with her months later.
So the other person that I wanted to introduce is Big Brother. And in this case, for the context of this presentation, we're really thinking of Big Brother as any entity that has access to your private data. So it could be a vendor like Amazon, could also be a government agency or something like that. What we'll specifically cover today are some thinking about why is your data important, how you can make better choices about what information you share, and what are some basic strategy and tactics that you can follow for protecting your online privacy. This is, for us, it's a non-technical presentation. We know that this is kind of it's a technical conference. Everybody saw the keynote this morning. So here we're just going to focus on really the strategy and some of the tactics you can follow, and you can adapt your own technology or approach the technology in your own way. So the first thing that I want to cover here is just thinking about the movie iRobot. So I think everyone here has seen iRobot or has heard about iRobot or even read the book, which is actually better than the movie. And iRobot's really interesting because it's a case where there is a crime that's been committed, and the police come to do their interviews. And not only do they interview people, but they also interview the robots that are a part of the world, part of this fictional world. So there are robots everywhere. Robots are doing work. Robots are helping people be more effective. Robots know a lot of personal information about ourselves. And it's not something we're unfamiliar with. We all know. We all carry these personal devices with us. They are around. They're in our environment. And they collect a lot of data. And I found a case that happened in 2015 in Bentonville, Arkansas, where a crime was committed after a party. The police came to investigate, and they found an Amazon device. They also found some other smart devices in the house, and they have since gone to Amazon and asked them for data to see if the Amazon Echo device had collected anything that could be used to prove if a crime had been committed. And they also are going to the public utility about the smart water meter to see if there was any unusual water use either during or after the party to indicate perhaps a crime scene had been cleaned up. And this is something that I think also brings us home, is that the world of iRobot is really the world that we're in today. And we think about privacy, at least I think about privacy in a very kind of abstract way. I think about it as this thing that I read about in a book. Well, at least it was a book that I started to read and I was really going to finish it. And I just never got around to it because I was too busy doing other things. But I know that privacy is important, but really security is the thing that's more important than privacy. Right, Michele?
Sorry, Todd. No.
What do you mean, no?
Privacy is just as important as security, and they're not interchangeable, but they are connected. So security, as we all know, is how to keep information safe and confidential. Privacy, however, is the appropriate collection and use of that information. So everybody focuses on the two-factor authentication, encryption, and all that, but they forget that we release information every day about ourselves. So Twitter, we're all familiar with Twitter. Why do we routinely give away personal information on Twitter? Or Facebook, any form of social media? A good example is the one up here. This woman lost her purse at a shopping center, and a Good Samaritan picked it up for her and returned it to her. She posted the thank you on Twitter, and in that post, she put where she lost it, the town she lives in, because she says to her home in Stittsville, and I'm guaranteeing you Stittsville's a very little town. And she also has a picture of her. So now any of us, if we're familiar with the town at all, can locate her. We know where she likes to shop. We know she's an active Twitter user, so we might be able to figure out where she is at that moment. Maybe she's posting that she's at Carlton Place with her friends right now. The other part is we all consider our personal emails private, right? Anything I put in my email, nobody else is reading. Unfortunately, that's not the case. An example here is Google and Gmail's privacy policies. It point blank states that their automated systems are analyzing our content, including our private emails, to provide us personally relevant product information, customized search results, tailored advertising, and spam and malware detection. So they're using our own data against us to sell us things.
I think the reason why this actually happens is because we undervalue the value of our own data. We think about our data, and I think about my data, as just a little bit of rock in a big pile of rocks. And it's not really that important. It couldn't possibly have value to anyone else. But the vendors that use our data and other people that access our data see it in a different way. They see our data as nice, chewy, delicious candy. And they want to take that candy and they want to bundle it up with other candy and they want to sell it, or they want to use it for some purpose. And one of the problems that we deal with as consumers is that every decision we make is really a trade-off between our own personal convenience and our privacy. We use an online service, which is convenient for us, but it also is a trade-off, and we have to give away some of our private information for that service to actually work because we're not necessarily paying for it. Every data consumer knows this about humanity. They know that we're lazy, and they know that in the long run, convenience is going to win, and we'll give up our privacy willingly. And that brings us to an interesting topic that Michele and I like to talk about, which is
privacy tug of war. So every day there are a number of forces and agents that are actively looking at your data or connecting to your data, touching it in some way. The first one is yourself. You're putting the data out there, whether you're posting it to a health account for your doctor, you're posting it on social media, you're buying cotton balls from the store. That's all data that's going out and you're putting out there yourself. Technology companies who are continuously developing new ways to collect data from us. Everybody got a Fitbit? Consumers.
or a phone.
Or a phone.
It's also modern. Got to get those steps in.
According to this, I've moved several steps since we started.
Oh, right. You're ahead of me.
Consumers of our data. Hospitals, your social network, those are consumers of your data. Benefit providers, insurance companies, employers, marketing firms, everybody is consuming your data. If you put it out there, somebody's looking at it. Consumer legal agencies, those are the agencies that are out there to help you protect your data if there's a problem. You can report breaches or if you think your privacy may have been violated. Executive orders, state and federal laws, all of those impact privacy, some beneficial and some negative. There are laws out there like HIPAA, FERPA that protect your data, but there are laws out there like Public Law 11522 that actually hurts your protection because it allows broadband companies to use your data without your permission. You have to opt out of using it instead of opt in. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there are forces impacting your data, and they change every day. They could change in a minute by Congress signing a law and it going into effect. So just be aware of what's happening out in the world concerning your own privacy.
So if we bring this to a concrete example, something as simple as ordering groceries online can affect our privacy. In this case, Target is something I'll pick on right now. So a young woman was ordering goods from Target, and she started ordering things like cotton balls and magnesium supplements, unscented lotion, and a bright blue rug. So if you're not familiar with this, you may not put the pieces together, but Target did, and they started sending coupons to the house for diapers and baby products. And her parents were not impressed. What happened here was that Target uses an algorithm based on 25 different products that they use as a pregnancy prediction score. So not only can they look at what you're buying and determine if you are pregnant, but they can also look at what you're buying and determine what state of pregnancy you're in and send you appropriate sales and coupons for that phase. Another way that we affect or give up our privacy is something as simple as ordering a cup of coffee. So, although here it's something that we really don't even think about. It just happen. These are transactions that happen many, many times a day. We don't give them a second's thought. And here I've outlined a few ways that we can give away information to the app that we use to buy the coffee. So a lot of these settings on our phones are default settings. So when we do a transaction, we can give away things like how long we were at the visit, how long we were at the store, what we ordered, what our location was, what song we were listening to. And all of this information is gathered by the sensors on our phone, it's gathered by various apps. And these are things that we've already given away. We don't realize it because when we got the phone, we didn't bother to read the privacy policies, or we didn't think about what data we were sharing. On a more serious note, Facebook has publicly stated that they have used user data to determine user moods, and they've changed ads based on what the moods of the users are. So you may think to yourself, that's not a big deal, but on the other hand, think about what might you buy on impulse when you're happy? What might you buy on impulse when you're sad? Data can be used by a government to determine if you should be detained for questioning. Moxie Marlinspike, who's a security researcher, finds himself often detained because his information was gathered together in the course of an investigation into WikiLeaks. Even though he has nothing to do with WikiLeaks, he's still detained for questioning.
And all of that data was legally obtained.
That's a great point. This is data that's legally obtained, that's part of either online services or part of people's phones, and it was obtained legally. And that actually brings us to the third point, which is that this data can be used in different ways to actually form a case against you. Nuala O'Connor, who's a privacy researcher who works for the Center for Democracy and Technology, stated in an interview, asked this question in an interview rhetorically: how much information do you need to build a case against you? And as Michele pointed out in a conversation we had earlier, some of this, we may think of this information as circumstantial, but when it actually is, from a legal standpoint, it may not be circumstantial. For example, something that Alexa records.
A lot of people have an Alexa Echo or other smart assistant, they're called, sitting in our homes. Even our phones could be considered that. And the conversations and what you ask for are stored. So if they get a copy of that sound file, that's direct evidence. That's not circumstantial. If somebody goes, Jeff, how could you stab me with a knife? That's a direct link to the crime, and and it's a direct point to who did it, and it can be used against you in court.
Finally, and something that I thought was even a little bit more scary, was that this information about us that's out there and available can also be wrong. We assume that the information is correct and right, and we think, no big deal. We have some coworkers that we have who don't really feel that concerned about their data being out there because they've been breached, it's there, they have protections. But in some cases, that information is wrong, and that can have a negative impact on your life. Spokeo, which is an online database that acquires information through third parties and through marketing agreements was had action taken upon it by the FCC. So it turns out that Spokeo had violated the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Spokeo was taking the information that it had gathered about all of us and was selling it to employers as a background search database. But the problem with Spokeo is a lot of their information was wrong, and people were being denied jobs because of the incorrect information that was available in Spokeo. So as we were going about our research, we were trying to figure out what can we possibly do to take some action, at least personally, to help prevent these kinds of situations.
So the question is, how do we balance the need for convenience with the need for privacy? We all need to be able to get that file to our doctor to help with a medical condition. We all need to be able to send the video to Aunt Minnie of your daughter's graduation. Well, the way to do it is to have a personal privacy strategy.
Which kind of sounds bizarre, but this is the world that we live in today.
Yes, unfortunately, we need a privacy strategy to buy a cup of coffee.
But don't worry, it's not that complex.
Based on our own experiences and drawing from the experts out in the field, we put together an approach that's very simple, easy to follow. Make informed decisions about your online presence, what you're putting out there. Think about it carefully. Compartmentalize. Create boundaries between the accounts and identities. Monitor for data leakage. Know what's out there and know how it's being used. So the first one up is informed decisions. Know the value of your data. Know what people could get out about you on it. If I post a picture, does it show that I love pink? Does it show that I love grapes? Does it show that I love whatever? Also think about what you're posting about others. What you're putting out there, even though you think it's a simple, easy thing, somebody else might not appreciate that being out there about them. To you, it's just a picture of the two of you hanging out at a party. But to somebody else, it indicates to maybe their employer, they're concerned about what their employer might think. We're all connected in this world today. And so just because you're okay with it doesn't mean somebody else is. Think about where your data is. How can it be legally accessed? To help with your decision making, we've also created a few categories of when sharing data.
Yeah, so specifically, we split it up into three areas. So the first, they're based on color. So there's green, yellow, and red. And this is kind of a common way of classifying information. But here we're just applying it to our own. So green is data that is something that is really difficult to be used to harm you. So it could be a throwaway phone number, like a Google Voice number, which can be easily changed, or it can be a credit card, or not a credit card, but a debit card that you set up. That's a gift card. Yellow information are things that can be used in combination with other information to harm you or someone that you're concerned about, some of your loved ones. So things of this nature can be things like a phone number, a primary email, or a credit card number. Again, you can change it, but it's a little bit more difficult to change than the green information. And we're going to get to some examples later. Red information is stuff like PHI, or biometric information, something that's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to change. And again, this is not an exhaustive list, of course.
So why does it matter where your data is stored? Every day, we all put things up in the cloud. How many people have pictures, documents, whatever, stored on a cloud server somewhere? I thought so. Do you know where that actually is stored? We all know that it doesn't, most people know, and especially here, that data has to reside on a physical server somewhere. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean that it's actually just residing up in the puffy white things that should be out there today but aren't. When you're storing data in a cloud, it could be anywhere. It could be China. It could be Switzerland, it could be Taiwan, it could be Ireland. And that matters because where your data resides physically, you are now subject to the laws of that country. So some states, city-states, countries have stricter provisions on privacy. The European Union is one of them. Your data is probably better there than it is here because they're stricter than the US. But other countries, such as Russia, do not have stricter laws. China, Taiwan, they all have much less protections. And so now, not only can't you control who's actually accessing it, but you have no recourse if something happens, because the US can't go in there and enforce their own laws. An excellent example is Proton Mail, if anybody's heard of it. They're based in Switzerland. And under their law, they have an obligation to, and I'm going to read it, I apologize. The obligation to provide the technical means for lawful interception is imposed only on internet access providers, so Proton Mail cannot be compelled to build in the technical means to intercept customer communications. So Proton Mail, because of the laws of Switzerland, cannot provide your data to the government or other entities.
It would also be extremely difficult for a U.S. law enforcement agency to try to access that data because there's no data sharing agreement, at least that I'm aware of, Michele, with Switzerland, so they would actually have to go through some international court to get at your information.
So aside from knowing where your data is stored, read the company privacy policies. I know it's legal mumbo jumbo, I know it could be confusing, but be aware of what they're saying. As we all know, Google is a great resource. Google the company name you're looking for and privacy policy. They have to post them somewhere. Think to yourself, and we actually have more questions on a handout if anybody would like one after the fact. Key questions to think of and answer are, how and when do they collect or view information? When are they should tell you when they're collecting information on you. How do they store and protect it? Two-factor authentication is important. It should be considered when you're reading the privacy policy. What rights do you retain to your information? There are social media sites that when you post a picture, they now also have rights to that picture, not just yourself. And they can use it at will. What can the company do with your information? Can they sell it to the marketing agencies? Can they just hand it over to the government? There are, we may not consider it data or information, but when you do a cheek swab and send it to a genealogy company or a blood testing company to find out your history, there are several of them who can just hand it over to the government without getting your approval. And it's right there in their policies. Where is the data stored? Might be listed in the privacy policy. If not, you should check their security policies and other site policies. Again, try to find out where it is. Policies change frequently, so part of our strategy is to recommend checking it multiple times a year. They typically notify you by email and send you a copy. Yes, I know, read it again, but just continue to check because they do change very frequently.
I think it's important to note that Facebook has changed their policy, privacy policy at least once every year for the past 5 or 6 years. And that also coincides with a change to their default privacy settings.
I actually learned while researching this project, because I do typically check my privacy settings, especially on Facebook. Mine were not as secure as I thought they'd been because since I last checked, they added the ability to check which apps sell you stuff. Didn't know that. Learned that recently.
So the next topic is something that should be familiar to people who do social engineering. It's kind of the opposite of that. So we are looking at personally compartmentalization. So we want to make sure that we separate work life and personal life so that there aren't any links there, or at least as few links as possible. I like to take the approach where I try to define roles around parts of my life, and this is a process that I'm going through. So I've separated work and personal life, but I also try to separate other activities. So if I have any social activities, such as, in this case, head coach of a softball team, kids softball team. Maybe you have a social media site just for that team, and so you have to be on Facebook. I'm kind of in the same situation. I have a club I belong to, and they're on Facebook, so therefore I have to be on Facebook, but I don't do anything else on Facebook. It's just a personal choice. And then you have another part of your life, more personal to you. Maybe you are dating, so you want to try to keep that separate as well. And this goes back to the idea of thinking about what data you have, how important that data is, how it can be used against you. So again, it's thinking about yourself from a social engineering perspective and then applying that. So let's say you belong to Tinder. You will probably want to create a email address specific for that Tinder account, a burner phone number specific for that Tinder account. This isn't something that I thought of myself, by the way. I just want to make that clear.
I should tell your wife.
No, don't.
So this also...
That's how we met, by the way.
Tinder?
Did I tell you about that?
No, I don't
We
know
actually
that.
did that. We went to one of the dating sites just because they had that commercial. And so we put our data in, and it turns out that we were a good match for each other. That's a good point. Yeah, I know we're weird like that. We do that kind of thing.
So this also goes back to what we said at the beginning about keeping your work and personal separate, not using your personal devices, personal items. If you have an Evernote-like account, don't put your work items in your personal account. Have two separate
Guilty.
accounts. That's what actually started the whole conversation with us before. So the next one is to monitor the use of your data. Everyone, I'm sure, in this room is very, very familiar with Google, protecting yourself, security, all of that, but just continue to check. There's a big difference between your security being breached and privacy. More often than not, privacy is breached, especially by something we've done, and we may not realize it's been breached. Yes, our personal health information has, but that doesn't mean that other details of our personal lives have been. It doesn't indicate in your PHI that you like blue and love grapes. It just says, I went to this doctor on this date. So Google yourself, check your accounts from different viewpoints. Most social media sites have the ability to show you what it looks like from a certain perspective. My settings are this locked down. It'll show you what others can see about you. Review your settings several times a year. I'm sorry, I know we have a lot of sites. It's very frustrating, but the risk is too high to not keep checking your settings. Continue to scrub your account of extra information. Do you really, really, really need to post that you're on vacation right now and your house is sitting empty? Do you need
or that you've been on vacation for the same time for the past 5 years at the same spot?
Every year you go to the Bahamas for this week. I wish I was there now. Also think about what if you're posting pictures of other people, get their permission, stuff like that. Continue to use Have I Been Owned and other services to check what is out there about you. You'd be surprised. I actually had somebody come up to me after a different presentation. He goes, I'm 60-some years old. I have nothing out there. I go, have you ever really Googled yourself to find out? He goes, no, but I don't think I have anything out there. We all have data out there. And if people know us based on what they see us on Facebook or social media, it's easy to find it. I said to Todd when we were researching this presentation, just think about how easy it would be to find out your security questions. On Facebook, Twitter, you often see in people's feed, hey, here's a list of questions, answer them and then repost it to your site. All you have to do is say, what's your favorite color? What was your first car? What's the name of your first pet? People would do it. And they have their name, their address. Hackers could go in anytime and get your personal information and how to steal your data even further.
I just saw one the other day, which was people who would potentially respond to this and in what way they would respond, name them. And people were circulating that one on Facebook. And I think, there are other tools too. We know about these tools. So again, this was kind of tailored towards a non-technical audience. But of course, the technical people here will know that there are other more intense tools that can do searching. We can write our own tools. But what I see for myself and from other hackers that I work with is that we tend not to do it. Just because we're busy, we don't think about it.
Well, and you don't think about privacy in the same way, I've noticed, as a non-technical person or somebody with a legal background. You think, well, if I lock it down, if I encrypt it, it's safe. But that doesn't necessarily mean your privacy is protected because of the information you're posting willingly.
Yeah. The other thing to think about in that regard is also work data. And because we're responsible for the data that we hold, when we find something, we discover something. I have worked with people I won't name who posted things to Trello. And they try to coordinate through Trello boards, which are, in this instance, not necessarily set up to be the most secure way of doing it. There are ways of securely accessing Trello, but they weren't really doing that. So let's get to some more real-world examples, and we want to focus on social media because that's, I think it's a hot topic right now.
So social media has become a major part of our lives. We use it every day to connect to people who maybe live across the country. We find out what our friends from high school or college are doing. Keep in touch with family, find out who had a baby, who graduated. But think about, do you really need to use that site or that service? Will you be able to get what you need accomplished by using one and not 10? Think about what else may be involved with some of the information out there. Is there another person in it? Does it give away your address? A lot of people like to post if they get a new apartment or a house, a picture with their address number on it. Talk about opening a door. Think about what the picture says about you to others. Try to step into their shoes and see what a marketing company might think about the data you're putting out there, or about your children. So a big one for me is children. when you post a picture of a child online, you're creating a social media profile for them without their consent. If you're posting a picture of your child or other people's children, definitely get the permission of the parents before posting, and ask your own child. I know several who have asked their parents to stop posting pictures because they were embarrassed about the, bathtub picture that ended up there, or the picture of them falling in the mud that the parent thought was hilarious. They weren't so keen on that being out there. Once it goes out of your control, it is out there forever. It's not going away. Even if you delete it, we all know it doesn't really get deleted. So, Big Brother. What you see when you post a picture of a party, what the police see. Police mine social media to profile you and build cases and gather evidence legally, because you are putting it out there for them to see. There's no restrictions. They can gather relationships, create patterns, and determine your weaknesses. Maybe they determine that this one individual likes to go for a run every day at 5 o'clock. Maybe that's where they're picking up their drugs. A prime example that I like to give is the house party. I remember when Facebook first came out, the campus police were using it to see what houses were having house parties so that they could go arrest the people for underage drinking. So how would following the strategy help here? It's the making an informed decision. Thinking about what you're posting, what it says about you, what it says about other people, and being aware that the police are on social media and are using it the same way everybody else to gather information about you.
So we talked about Big Brother. We're going to talk about Middle Brother. So Middle Brother in our model is a company that is mining your data for a profit, and they're trying to see what they can sell to you. Or it could be even an employer who is using this to either evaluate you as a job candidate or perhaps for some other purpose. Yeah, it could be for a review. It's going to happen, you know it. So in this case, what you see is the convenience of signing in with another account. So you can sign in with Gmail or Twitter. You can sign in with Facebook. It's very convenient. In some cases, it's actually kind of secure because you might be signing into a service that doesn't have the same kind of protections that these other services offer. And we think about that as a good thing. On the negative side, that site you've signed into, that data consumer, that vendor, because of the reciprocal agreements that they have set up to allow themselves to be used as in this way, they actually have access to the information in your Facebook account or your Gmail account. So one way to prevent this, of course, is not to do that and go through the extra step, the inconvenience of having a separate sign-in. And this goes back to the idea of compartmentalizing, so you're not linking accounts. And if one account is compromised, then you don't have a cascade of account failure.
Social media and what we call little brother. These are your everyday average people, your neighbors, your network, people who see your data. You post the picture to show them what happened this weekend and that you had a good time. But they can use their data in ways that your data in ways that you don't expect. This is an actual post from someone posting that she went for a run that morning. She shows her start and finish time, probably her house.
We didn't mock this up. This is an actual, yeah.
Oh yes, and that her cat is waiting for her when she gets home. So what could a neighbor see? That, gee, nobody's home but the cat, and free for picking. If you share information from your social media account with a friend, and your settings are very locked down. I'm sure many people in here are aware and conscious of their privacy on a social media site. But if your settings are very locked down, but you share a picture or a post and somebody else shares that post to their timeline or likes it, it's now on their settings and their settings trump. So now it's available to their network. And if their network is not nearly as locked down as you are, everybody can see it. And just think of the connections from there of they posted it to theirs, somebody else took it and posted it to theirs, and so on and so forth. So just how would following the strategy help in this situation? I can't repeat it enough. Make an informed decision. Think about what you're putting out there, how it could enter a pattern, how it could leave you open for a break-in, what it says about you. This person literally does, in fact, go for that morning run every day. Same time, every day. So social media and the unexpected brother. This is what goes back to what I said at the beginning about somebody having their child's picture stolen. So
We didn't want to use any child pictures.
yeah, we refused to violate somebody's privacy and use an actual children's photo, so we did a mock-up. So somebody posted a picture of their child and had it stolen and used in what is called a sick child hoax. They actually took their picture of this individual and posted it all over the internet saying that they were sick and needed money, and people were sending money. We also found, and this is why we have what really messed up people see, is that people were using pictures of children in online sexual role-playing as their avatars. Again, unexpected, brother.
Yeah, and when you're doing a presentation like this, be very careful what you Google.
The images stay with you forever. So this goes back to the point we made earlier about being very, very cautious with your children's photos. They can be used in ways that you don't intend, and you are creating a social media profile for them. Whether they're aware of it or not, that is out there, it's staying with them, and somebody else might be able to use it in ways you didn't intend. You sent it to Aunt Minnie, but George in the next county got it, and you don't want to know what he's doing with it.
So to summarize, I wanted to call this "Keep Your Crap Off the Cloud," but I didn't think that would go over well on a slide, so I call it "Be Aware of What You Share." And I know that a lot of us are highly technical, and we have a lot of experience in this field, and I want you to think about this. You're the tip of the spear. You're the hard point. You go after the bad guys. Who's around you? Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, your child, your brother, your sister. These people are not the tip of the spear. When you're going after someone, when you're social engineering, who are you going to go after? You're not going to go after me. Well, you could. I'm pretty easy. You might go after my wife. Might go after my family. So something to think about. And I hope that even if this information is reviewed for you, that it's perhaps presents something that is kind of easy to digest and you can give to your loved ones, and that they can apply so that they can be more secure online as well. So any questions? A little reminder about Big Brother? Yes?
So there's certainly a lot of incentives to share your data. It seems like there is a lack of information about the actual tangible cost and dollar amounts of sharing the data. Do you know of any research on that topic? Like how much money do companies actually get out of you by using your data?
I know a little bit. Have you found anything?
You had that part.
Okay, sorry. Well, we collaborate. So actually, it's not a lot. It's really interesting. I was expecting, because I've done research into the economy of cybersecurity and cybercrime, and it's pretty much what you'd expect. It's $40. I think is one figure that I had for your personal data in Google. It's worth about $40. So in the aggregate, though, it does add up to a lot when you have millions and millions of users. But so individually, yeah, it's not really that much, unless it's something like, even a bank account isn't really that much. So, yeah, I'm sorry, did everyone hear the question? I should have repeated it. It was, what's the value of your own information on the open market?
And in a lot of the cases of your privacy being violated, it's not necessarily about the money, but what can happen to you, or what the end result is for the person. Again, children, others, when you post something about somebody else, that impacts them. And it could impact you. Do you want to lose the job? Maybe you wanted a new position with a $10,000 raise, and now you didn't get it because of something you had on Facebook.
Yeah, the cost to you is, I think on average, it takes about 6 to 9 months now to recover from identity theft. It actually has gotten better. There's so many identity theft cases that it's gotten faster. It used to be over a year. And you're looking at anywhere from, I think, $6,000 to $12,000 in legal fees and other costs to recover your identity from an identity theft case.
Just to expand on that question, actually, in 2014, there's been research into that topic. For Facebook, it's $12 a year per user.
Yeah, so yes, it's about $12 a year for a user. $12 per user, yeah, it's about right. So it's not a lot.
Like the case with Target, getting $10 off for diapers, that's pretty good.
I was going to say, I wanted that coupon.
Right,
Yeah.
So the girl was actually, proper age, and
Yeah.
really good.
I think it's not just, yes, the coupon is great. Yes, getting stuff sold to us is better. It's just the fact that all of this may be happening without our knowledge. the average person on the street doesn't realize that people are collecting everything we put out there about ourselves. And yes, the coupon's a funny example, but the not so funny example are the predators, are the police department building a case against you, are...
Well, I guess my question is, so you know the crowd here, right? And so this has been great, but realistically, the question should be like, what can we do? Like we as you mentioned, it's a great point that we are kind of different here, but what can we do? Because normal people, they enjoy the coupons, right?
Yeah.
I love my coupons. It's great.
Especially the diapers.
Yeah. Like when you get a coupon for stuff that you don't even think about, and then when you get it, you're like, yes, right? It's awesome, but like from in this room, what kind of thing can we do proactively?
We have a list of questions that you should ask yourself when you're posting, and we can.
No, not for myself. Again, like we know the stuff. We know how to get around and how to do nothing.
Oh, so you're talking, like we were saying, well, you're talking about family.
Like again, we're on the good side.
Right.
Most of us, right?
Yeah.
How do we, like, besides just bringing it to the masses and talking about
Yeah.
this stuff, but maybe there's some other things. You have some other thoughts of things we can do as a community. Maybe push for some changes in Congress.
I see what you're saying. Yes, that is a great point, which is something that I think because of our position at NYCon, we can't really speak about. But yeah, that is something that me personally, I believe in advocacy. So yeah, something we can talk about after the presentation. Yes.
And for me, on a personal level, avoiding the whole government route, I think the biggest thing is just getting this type of message out there so that people are more aware. This isn't a topic that's talked about a lot, how to protect your own privacy, because people just don't, especially in today's connected society, they don't think about the fact that they could violate their own privacy by putting something out there. So just continuing to talk about it, and I actually sit down with a friend of mine who likes to post everything about her children on Facebook, and just said, you might want to be careful what you're doing. And she stopped after that because she realized that she started asking her children and stuff like that. So again, just keeping the conversation going and telling people, and we're not saying don't use it, just use it smartly. Does that answer your?
I know that kind of evaded your question, but yeah, there's So,
Yeah. Start to find middle ground, because realistically, what you said was also great read the policy, right? But realistically, like now when you read it, right? So before that, it was nice and jolly, and you didn't know even what was going on, right? Now you read it, you're still gonna use it, but now at least you know that you're getting screwed too. So,
Well, reading a policy also tells you what to be on the lookout for. If you know that the social media site now owns the rights to your pictures, you're going to be a little bit more careful about which pictures you post up there. It just allows you to think about.
right? Yeah.
You hope. We hope. It
Well,
allows you to think about it before doing it.
I mean, I'll pick on Evernote. We talked about Evernote earlier. I was using Evernote to capture notes about what I was working on, and I got the updated privacy policy notice that came out last year, where Evernote in the policy said that they were changing their policy to allow more internal people to have access to your account for quality, I think it was quality control purposes or something like that. And ordinarily I would have just ignored the notice and not read it, but now that we're going down this kind of rabbit hole, I read that and I thought, oh no, I've got information up there that could potentially lead to information about clients that I'm working with. So I immediately did what I needed to do to get rid of that account, delete the information permanently. I read the instructions they had on permanently deleting information. I downloaded what I had as a backup, and I canceled my account. And then I got a confirmation from them later that they had removed all the information. And then took a lesson learned there. What was I thinking putting that up in the cloud to begin with? And so I've begun to change the way that I work. I've taken stuff off the cloud. I have instead of using OneNote or something, I have a personal wiki that's it's on my hard drive. If my laptop is stolen or something, someone could get that, but at least it's not available for other people to go through for whatever reason. Question in the back? So are people being penalized in some way for not using social media? Have you seen anything about that?
In our research, I haven't seen anything about that. In fact, the gentleman gentleman I talked to at the one conference I presented at, he said he had no online presence, and he did not indicate at all that he had been penalized.
I've seen some anecdotal things, about people who generally it's when they apply for a job. If the company has some kind of wacky HR practice where they review social media sites and then you don't have one, that it's kind of suspicious. I don't have any other thoughts on that. I haven't seen any. I think if anything else, it's actually probably best that you don't have it. So. Oh, thank you. Sure, go ahead.
So I graduated recently from university, right? And I'm in the Boston area. And we've been talking to a lot of recruiters and that stuff. And I would say with 1/3 of them said that when they get a resume, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, they just throw it out. So that's not anecdotal. And that's kind of scary if you think about it. I mean, yes, LinkedIn is professional, it's supposed to be professional, right? But to the point where there's, again, not just one, not just twice, but there's a group of recruiters who said that when we get a resume and you don't have a LinkedIn account, you just throw it out.
It's good to know. Thank you. So, yes.
Yeah, there's also other forms of privacy that you might want to maintain that do definitely have costs associated with them. The one that comes to mind is social security numbers and trying to maintain them.
Yeah.
If you try and deal with Time Warner, which is very popular for many of you, and say, I will not give you social,
Yeah.
they'll require you to put down deposits and additional money and sometimes pay additional fees, which is tenuous at best, but certainly does have real world consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were mostly talking about
Assholes.
Yeah.
No, those are in there.
It's a good way of putting it, yes, but yeah.
Big Brother, I definitely
Yeah.
categorize that.
That's fair.
No, I just think we were thinking about that. We all know you gotta protect your social security number. We're talking about the data that we don't think about.
Are you aware of any research into how, I guess, different demographics are affected by data sharing differently? So, for example, I imagine low-income individuals with lower income are probably have a much stronger incentive to sign up for things that will get them those extra coupons.
Wow. That's a really good thought. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's a good point. So there's a bigger incentive for them to do it. They have less awareness potentially. So
More vulnerable.
yeah. So yeah. Also, they would have to participate potentially more in government programs. So there's automatically more data collected on them anyway. So yeah, that's a good point. So unfortunately, no, but that's maybe next presentation. I'm definitely going to add that. That's an interesting one. I like that. Anything else?
I think, like you said, the advocacy and write your congressman.
Yeah.
When you see laws being passed, then now your ISP can collect your data
Yeah.
and sell it. We're going in the wrong direction.
You have to opt out of it instead of opting into it now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Like you said, yes, but we're going in the wrong direction. And if you want it to change, then
So I don't know
that's where it's got to start.
how many people have heard, but has anybody heard about the EU safe harbor? And so then you also know that we are no longer really have it because in the end of 2015, it was determined that the U.S. was not as protective of privacy as the European Union. So
Man, it's all about the coupons. It's all about it.
But we have good coupons, yeah.
It's a pretty good
Yeah.
coupon.
I can choose whether or not to use the coupon. I just have no choice about it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and every time you download that coupon, it goes back and it says, hey, they like this coupon, let's send them more.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some good information. Thank you.